Hello and hi, my name is Connor. 今日の動画では Mei Semones no Animaru について話してます。This album is by Mei Semones. She is a singer and songwriter from America. However, her songs are like 50-50 Japanese and English. And so for that reason, she gets featured here on my channel. Actually kind of a lot. So I think this is my 4th video on her. So in case you haven't seen my other videos, here is a recap. So for her first EP called Tsukino, I gave that 9 out of 10. For her second EP called Kabutomushi, I gave that 10 out of 10. And so you can kind of imagine where I might fall for this album. But the real question is this a 10 out of 10 album? Yes. This album is divine, and I am going to be spending the rest of the time yapping about how much I love it. So I'm sorry in advance, but to be fair, you clicked on the video. So you might be wondering what makes this an easy 10 out of 10 for me. It's pretty much flawless. I think that's probably the best way that I can encapsulate all of my thoughts on this awesome album. I think for starters, I just love the way that this album sounds. I am just so infatuated with how successfully Mei is able to integrate jazz and bossa nova and then like Midwest emo and then also math rock. I love the way that this album sounds, particularly those weird genre comminglings, if you will. There are these absolutely beautiful string jazz arrangements all across this entire album, and at this point, I would call those pretty much her trademark kind of aspects of her sound. For example, the song Rat with Wings is just beautiful. It's luscious, it's kind of sad too, though there is a very intense feeling of resolve and power and self-reliance. And then as that theme becomes more and more prevalent throughout the song, it just explodes in this like massive cymbal crash. And there's all these violins and it just gets real like moody and just Midwest emo-y, and I love that. I live for that shit. There's also another song on this album called Zarigani, which is a lot like that one too. It is such a cute, lovely, bossa nova song. And then it turns into this sort of like Nirvana-esque indie rock song towards the end. And then as the song ends, maybe in the last like 30-40 seconds, Mei just yells, "Be quiet!" And I'm like, yes ma'am. Yes ma'am, happily. Okay, so she doesn't yell it exactly like that, but I will say that is kind of the energy that that shout sort of has. So I mentioned all of that just so I can point out the fact that there are so many songs on this album that sound like they are dying to be like punk ballads. Like, for example, Rat with Wings, Zarigani, Animaru, and also I Can Do What I Want, which I would say is probably the punkiest song on this album, though I feel like that's more so a matter of opinion. Some are somewhat more rowdy, I suppose. Okay, next what I want to mention is the mixing. As always, it is perfect. I think the mixing sounds like how the album cover is like looking, but let me try to make sense of that, right? So there is a song on here called Norwegian Shag. So on that song, Mei's voice and also her guitar are like right in the middle mixing wise, and then everyone else is kind of like outstretched. And so because there are so many string instruments here in the band, it just sort of sounds like to me that those wings are like fluttering in the mix, and it is just fantastic, and I just love everything about it. I have literally nothing bad to say about this album, even if I try. Please believe me, because I always try to always offer a little kind of critique or criticism, and I try to make it helpful, but I don't know where I can go with this album. I don't know where anyone can go besides up and like stay there. I think that's mainly just because of the quality of each of the songs. Like, oh my god, Zarigani, which I keep talking about, is probably one of the catchiest songs I have ever heard in my whole life. And I can't get it out of my head. And I'm not even mad about it because the whole song is just so lush with production. I love the lyrics. I love Mei's voice. She is such a skilled guitarist too. She sounds better than ever here. Listen to the song, Tora Moyo, and just be blown away by how complex and intricate and like technical all of her guitar passages are. It's insane. I don't know how she can play and sing at the same time. It is actually stunning. And so obviously I was so happy that that amazing guitar work carried over from Kabutomushi. But you want to know what carried over from Tsukino? There is one aspect from that first EP that I absolutely loved, And I mentioned it in my review too. And again, this is kind of hard to explain if you haven't heard the music. So many of the songs here sound like they are from the soundtrack from some like 1950s or 1960s romance movie. They are so lush and grand and exquisite. They are full of life and love and emotion and expression, and they are just fantastic. I can't really. I just have to stop. I have to stop because this is the end. Music cannot progress any more than this. Last year, Jordy Griep came out with an album called The New Sound. This is the new sound. But while we are on this topic, I also want to shout out the final song, Sasayaku Sakebu, which means like a quiet yell, a whispered yell. It's like I'm transported to like France. And I am just at this waltz, and it is so luxurious and grand and just regal. Oh my God, I can't get over it. I really can't. I am in love with this album. Okay, and with that, I want to get into the not so much a lyrical breakdown for the song Rat with Wings, because I feel like it's very obvious what the song is going for thematically, but I really want to highlight it just because I love the level of songwriting here. But on top of that too, I just really like it as a song a lot, and I think it really deserves some like proper recognition. So here are the lyrics. You were like an angel, came from the sky above. I saw you yesterday, hiding beneath the track. Sometimes I miss you still, but I'll never want you back. I'll never want you back. You're an angel, like a bird, while chasing after the shadows casted by clouds, the wind forced you into the air. With your head towards the valley, your wings were made to land. Other pigeons lined up while you chased the clouds' shadows. Flock to the action, count the holes in my jeans. You're just a rat with wings, you're just a rat with wings. I saw you yesterday, hiding beneath the track, blending in with the trash. Sometimes I miss you still, my mind is with you still. Even though you were a rat, my mind is with you still. But I'll never want you back, I'll never want you back. And I guess one little lyrical analysis thing I want to do there is that, so obviously, rat with wings, with very angelic looking wings, much like on the cover of this album, right? But then, she never says that they're anything else like a rat with wings. So yes, while this rat has wings and can fly, there are other actual birds, aka the pigeons, who had actually been lining up to, I guess, be in her life. And I think what I really like about that aspect of the song is that there is this microcosm of a story happening in the song that I feel like is told so loosely that it's kind of easy to actually miss. And I just think that that is another attribute of her music that also gets overlooked and is something that I don't really ever see people talk about, is her storytelling ability. And I wish that was highlighted more because I think it is a very important and fantastic part of her music. And that's, of course, why I wanted to mention this song here. Like I keep saying, I think everything about this album is perfect, and a lot of that is because of the band itself on top of Mei. They are just creating some absolutely just instrumentally like glorious music here. There are just some absolutely perfect songs on this album, and I think the lyrics are as sweet as ever, but I also find that they are a lot more salient too, which I have no problem with whatsoever. And again, I just love the way that Mei writes her songs because she is actually writing them in what I find to be a very open and also very honest sort of way. And I really like that she isn't heavily relying on a lot of metaphors in her music. Now, there certainly are some, like in the case of Rat with Wings, but I feel like for the most part, a lot of her songs are love songs, and you don't really need to use metaphor all the time to say how much you love someone. And I just find that she is incredibly upfront about that. And it's just one more reason why I am liking her music so much. So I feel like this album is very much an inverse to her very first EP called Tsukino, whereas the songs on there are very much about her weaknesses and also about her insecurities. I find that this album is a complete 180 and is about her power and her resilience and her determination and also her strength and her power and her friends and her family and blah, 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 blah. And I guess I mentioned that because I'm just so happy to hear that for her. And I think it also really reflects positively in the music itself too. I am so happy that is what she decided to actually talk about here, because it's kind of a new direction for her, I guess. When I had interviewed her in December of last year, she had also mentioned that a lot more of the songs here would be a lot happier, and they most certainly are, because a lot of Kabutomushi is like really sad stuff, and it's kind of the same on like Suki no 2, but I feel like that's less because of the feelings and more so because of her talking about herself, not necessarily just her feelings. And so while yes, I love Tsukino for that reason, because I like this total kind of reverse, I love this album too, but I don't think I really need to vocalize that any more than I already have, because I have been absolutely glazing her this entire video. But of course, she isn't the only person to properly need a glazing here. I also need to glaze the rest of her band too, and that would include the following. That is going to include Noah Leong on the viola. That is going to be Claudius Agrippa on the violin. That is Noam Tanzer on the bass. That is Ransom McCafferty on the drums. And this album is also co-produced, recorded, and mixed by Charles Dulk, which again, I love the mixing here. It really makes the album for me too. And Charles, you did fantastic. You are a wizard, and I like this a lot. But of course, as is everyone else in the band, because everything is so powerful and distinct, and it all just adds up to be worth more than the sum of its parts. And I know that's so cliche to actually say, but oh my God, I really feel that. And that is it. That is the review. Just to do a quick synopsis here, it's a 10 out of 10, perfect in every way. I literally cannot find a single fault. I am so excited for whatever Mei comes out with next. Hopefully we get another album soon, and her releases are not just locked to the Mei of every year, because that's what her name is. I think it's very cute, but if you could come out with another album in the fall, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. And also thank you so much for watching too. That's really all I have to go over. I think you need to listen to this for sure, especially if you like jazz, rock, fluffy feelings, and also, hey, if you only speak English, then you can understand like half of these songs. So that's kind of a plus too, right? Okay, that's officially everything. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.